hate the internet. Well, maybe not exactly, but I definitely hate what the internet's become. I realize this video may come as a bit of a shock to some of you, considering that I am a content creator and I do make a living on the internet. However, I've come to realize that in the process of utilizing technology that's brought about numerous benefits, we've also created a monster in the process. Now, before I explain my specific criticisms, let me reiterate that there are so many wonderful things about the internet, but just like any other tool, it can be abused. So that's going to be my primary focus for this video. With that in mind, let's take a walk down memory lane where I experienced the magic of the World Wide Web in its infancy. The year is 1990 something, and I can still remember the joy I felt every time I booted up AOL and heard that beautiful sound.
You've got mail.
Oh! Even though it was usually a pretend Nigerian prince promising me $10 million, the thrill of receiving an email never failed to intrigue me. Now, unlike today, we didn't have the luxury of broadband or Wi-Fi. Oh no. We had to use something primitive called dial-up, which was the process of connecting to an internet service provider via a telephone number that you dialed on your computer, which would then emit a series of screeches and beeps until a connection was made or your ears started bleeding, whichever came first. One major drawback of dial-up was that it was tied to your house phone, which meant that while you were online, you couldn't make any calls. By the way, if you don't know what a house phone is, it's a phone that literally stays in your house because cell phones weren't really a thing back then, unless you wanted to carry a brick around with you, and even then, mobile internet wasn't invented yet. And this, my friends, is what leads me to one of the reasons why I have such a disdain for how the internet is used today. During its early inception, I feel like people held this technology in a higher regard, and I think much of that stems from the effort required to utilize it. People were much more intentional about the content they were consuming, but these days, you got 20 tabs open at once. You're watching Twitch on one screen, scrolling through Twitter or X on the other, and the next thing you know, you've wasted 5 hours of your life consuming junk. The internet went from feeling like an occasional treat to an everyday indulgence that we can't imagine living without. Bored? Watch a video. Are you single? Try a dating app. Feeling lonely? Who needs friends when you could have followers? Back in the day, when you wanted to meet new people, you actually had to go out in public, or at minimum, pick up the phone. But now, people get a false sense of community by their online interactions and think they're socializing by sharing memes or retweeting someone's posts. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with social media, it's not a replacement for meaningful interactions. Need food? Get it delivered. Feeling sick? See a virtual doctor. Got a dirty house? Just order a maid. And you need some money? Boo-boo, you can work from home and completely destroy your work-life balance. Speaking of which, the internet has also made it easier for people to be blinded by the love of money. Having money isn't wrong, but when people love money, they'll do anything to get it, including following trends or monetizing the most nonsensical or degenerate content they can think of. Now, before you accuse me of being bothered, trust me, I'm not. I mean, the internet has always had its share of low-quality, degenerate stuff, some of which I'm personally responsible for uploading. However, the difference is now it seems to be more prevalent than it used to be, and there's also a shift in people celebrating, or more specifically, normalizing this type of stuff, because let's be real, it's usually easier to monetize as opposed to creating something that requires more skill or is intellectually stimulating for the audience. Just look at the landscape of online content. Some of the top creators are people who openly commit crimes, romanticize their mental illness, or have fits of rage over video games. Seriously, why do you think, for example, there's been a rise in young women producing sexually suggestive content? Is it really because the economy is that bad and they can't afford to eat? Or is it because the attraction of easy money is more enticing, or perhaps they've grown accustomed to comfort and are reluctant to give up small luxuries to prioritize their fundamental needs? I kid you not, I've seen videos of people crying because they didn't make enough money on Twitch or OnlyFans for that month, as if they couldn't just go out and get another job. Not only that, I've also seen so much regret from women who are jaded by the world because no one wants to date them or take them seriously on matters which don't involve getting naked or suggestively sucking on a microphone. The convenience of making money online has made people less resourceful and less likely to invest time in developing skills that would make them invaluable contributors to society. And while I agree that everyone has the freedom to do whatever they want, I think it's important to consider the potential consequences of our choices. What are we willing to sacrifice in pursuit of our desires? And how do our desires affect the world at large? Because the reality is that people often mirror what they see online. So it's unfair to say that the content we upload isn't at least partially responsible for shaping the society we inhabit. Like I said, having money isn't bad, but we shouldn't allow ourselves to be blinded by it. You can be the richest person in the world and still feel empty and unfulfilled. You can have thousands of followers and still be lonely and depressed. Trust me, I know. By the way, I'm not depressed right now, but I used to be. And even after I reached a certain level of success as a streamer, I still felt like there was something missing in my life. It didn't matter how many sponsorships I got, how many fans I had, or how many subscribers I acquired, I still felt a lack of meaning and purpose because my career was my top priority. Which is interesting because whenever I talk to someone who treats money as their idol, they usually have a long list of problems that they're dealing with, like, for example, relationship problems, family problems, mental health problems, and so on and so forth. And if this sounds like you, then you might also want to rethink your priorities. For me, it's God first, then my husband, then family. Notice that my career isn't anywhere on that list because if I'm living a life that's pleasing to God, then everything else will fall in line. But if my job or really any other ambition was at top, then my life would crumble as it did because those things don't provide me a solid foundation to build my life on. What do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your soul in the process? Is there anything worth more than your soul? I don't think so. All that to say, I can't help but wonder what society would look like if everyone focused on creating good content that encouraged personal development and societal advancements as opposed to chasing money, following trends, and trying to go viral. Imagine if the internet became a powerful tool to promote innovation, critical thinking, and aided in our emotional and spiritual growth. But nope, all we get is this.
It's amazing. I love the aquarium.
Yes,
Oh,
booming.
boxing
So
too.
yes,
The champions.
so good. So good.
I can't. Is this real life? If it wasn't entirely obvious by now, one of my biggest gripes about the internet is how much it's accelerated stupidity. Obviously, stupid people existed before the web, but the only difference now is they have pronouns in their bio. On a serious note, despite the endless information at our fingertips, it seems like people are getting dumber and dumber by the day. Prior to the internet, research required a lot more time and effort than doing a 5-second Google search or skimming through an article headline. And while there's nothing wrong with online research, there is a higher risk of being swayed by propaganda given the overwhelming volume of information available. And if you tie this in with our innate desire for instant gratification, it's no wonder so many people became law experts after the George Floyd incident or scientists during COVID. In other words, we're being conditioned to know what to think instead of learning how to think, largely due to how information is presented and consumed online. And because of online algorithms, we're often exposed to information that already aligns with what we think, making it less likely for us to encounter opposing viewpoints and less willing to consider them. Why do you think cancel culture is so pervasive? Or why do you think politics is more polarized than ever before? It's a sign that people are so entrenched in their echo chambers and aren't willing to engage in the rigorous exchange of ideas. For most people, it's much easier to dismiss someone as a racist, a libtard, a grifter, or call them brainwashed than it is to admit that you were misinformed on something. Outside of the internet, you can't block everyone who disagrees with you. I mean, you can try, but that's not how civilized societies work. You actually have to engage with one another, which not only fosters our intellectual and emotional development, but also helps build bridges across social, ideological, and political divides. Or I guess you can just quote tweet someone and call them a transphobic Nazi, because I'm sure that's equally as helpful, right? That's sarcasm. All right, so now we're gonna get super scientific. So put on your thinking caps, ladies and gents, because it's about to get real. Have you ever gone out in public and noticed that so many people are glued to their phone? They're just walking around like this. Have you ever felt the urge to check social media while you're having dinner, while you're using the bathroom, or maybe while you're simultaneously watching a video, perhaps this one?
Stop it.
If so, there's a chance that what you're experiencing is something called a dopamine-driven feedback loop. Every time we encounter something rewarding or get pleasure out of doing something, our brain naturally releases dopamine. But because of the endless content available at our fingertips, especially with the introduction of short-form content, our brains have become accustomed to frequent dopamine hits. Over time, this can affect our ability to find satisfaction in simpler, less stimulating activities like reading a book, exercising, or engaging in face-to-face conversations, which can then lead to a cycle where we seek out more and more stimulation to experience that same pleasurable dopamine rush. Kinda like a drug addict. The scary part about all of this is that, first of all, we have a generation of kids being raised with smartphones and tablets in their hand and won't know what it feels like to be entertained without staring at a screen. How would someone know they're a slave if they don't know what freedom is? And secondly, the frequent exposure to this type of stimuli can also make it harder for people to stay focused on a single task for extended periods, which probably explains why you can't poop without scrolling through TikTok, or you can't eat your dinner without watching something on Netflix. There have also been research studies that show the swiping motion that you do on your screen is similar to the feeling you'd get if you were to pull the lever on a slot machine, because both acts have unpredictable rewards, which ends up being more exciting for us than if we knew exactly what the possible outcomes were up front. Some of the most popular platforms, like, as I mentioned, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Amazon, and even those degenerate adult websites you should probably not be on, are all purposefully made with this in mind to keep us continually seeking out more content. So, if you notice that you're spending more time fixated on what's on your screen instead of engaging with the world around you, then it might be worth considering a dopamine detox, which involves abstaining from social media or any websites that you habitually check for at least a week. This break is going to help reset your dopamine levels to a healthier state, allowing your brain to rediscover the joys of seemingly mundane things. But during this detox, it's important that you avoid other activities that would also spike your dopamine levels, such as consuming alcohol, using marijuana, engaging in hookup culture, binge watching Netflix, or playing video games for hours on end, as this would defeat the purpose. And then, after you're done with the detox, you can gradually start adding things back into your life if you think it's necessary, or more specifically, if it's actually beneficial for your well-being. So for me personally, I've removed all social media apps from my phone, and when I'm working on the computer, I use a browser extension to limit certain aspects of the sites that I'm on to avoid getting distracted. But most importantly, I'm a lot more mindful about the type of content I consume, especially when it comes to current events. It's one thing to be informed, and it's another thing to allow that information to keep me in a constant state of anger or anxiety. And finally, finally, if I could recommend 2 books for you that cover a lot of what I discussed in this video, the first would be Digital Minimalism: Choosing a Focused Life in a Noisy World by Cal Newport, and Get Your Life Back: Everyday Practices for a World Gone Mad by John Eldredge. I'm not sponsored by either of these authors, by the way. I just really enjoy their work. All right, but that's going to be it for this video. I think this was very productive, all right? Now, after you watch this, I want you to go outside, touch some grass, all right? Go to the gym without bringing your ring light. Go have dinner without taking a photo for Instagram, all right? I want you to just go out and enjoy the world without looking at the world through a screen. I promise you'll feel a lot better. So yeah, if you guys enjoy this video, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure you share it with someone that you think needs to see it. And if you want to support the channel, consider picking up some official merch over on my website. Link is in the description below. My name is Gothix, and I'll see you next time. Bye!